So there's a feeling that, and that would be kind of a logical piece to survive intact, and would be a very large, very regular shaped object that we could pick out, and also I think the tail section could have separated, and that would be the tails themselves would stretch to 21 feet from the base of the keel, and the horizontal tail would be 38 feet across. So, and it's got a lot of sticky out bits to it. So it would land on the and that's a very technical term.
Very
yes,
technical term.
But yeah, where it would land
Extremely so.
and give some relief off the bottom. The cockpit section as well could have separated. And there was actually an anchor and a windlass in the bow section of the airplane that could again could be something that would be recognizable. The wings themselves, there were outrigger pontoons that may have and if the wing is inverted and those remained attached, they could be sticking up quite a ways off the seabed as well. The propellers there was an 11-foot propeller arc, though those might be resting flat on the bottom unless they're still attached to the engines, and if they're attached to the wing. But that would again help us, by projecting up off the bottom. So
we have, and we're currently roughly about 12 or so miles off Pago Pago.
Yes, what was interesting to me was the voyage out here. We were really out here from Pongo Pongo. We were retracing the path of USS Avocet, which was a seaplane tender that was based here as the Navy station ship at Pongo Pongo in 1938, and they were the ones tasked with the original search. And so, actually, I was reviewing the logs that Lonnie found and copied at the National Archives, and it talks about that they're moored at the Naval Station Wharf, and then at 1910 they get underway en route to 12 miles north of Tapu Tapu Point in search of Samoan Clipper. So that is basically where we are at right now. Is well, a little bit short of that in that we're dropping down, and then we're going to advance to the northwest along that line, and reach that point and scan beyond it. Actually, we're going to start. The line starts about a mile to the south, and then we'll work our way past it a mile or so, and then turn back, and that next turn we anticipate will come and we'll pass over the coordinates that were given in the Bureau of Air Commerce report. Though I mean we would be very, very, very lucky indeed if the airplane is exactly on those coordinates. But I got to figure it's not far away. It's here somewhere close by. So we are going to make our runs back and forth over this site until we find something.
Hey Russ, this is Ed at Video. I know we were talking earlier about the reasons why we're looking at this, to understand and honor these early pioneers of flight.
Yes.
And personally, I find that aviation is one of those just a fantastic field as an example of human achievement. And I actually keep on my computer an image from, I think it's the Air and Space Museum in DC. As we all know, in December, I think, of 1903, the Wright brothers achieved the first powered controlled flight.
Yes.
And 66 years later, we walked on the moon. In 1968. And Neil Armstrong took with them in the command module a piece of, I believe, the left propeller and the left canvas wing from the Wright brothers plane, and it went to the moon with them.
I did not know that story.
I just think, but the takeaway for me is that's one human lifetime.
Absolutely.
We went from achieving flight to being on the moon. And yeah, aviation was an area where it just changed, mankind. And so, you know, a captain and a unique aircraft like that, there's every reason in the world to find it.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you for sharing all that with us. That is incredible to think that how far people came in such a short time. And what's interesting, another interesting thing that came from this project, from doing the research for this, and I love this stuff and didn't even realize what a role Ed Music had played in that development of aviation and in realizing those dreams.
Right.
It turns out, so the first air show held in the United States was at Dominguez Field in Los Angeles in 1910. So just barely 7 years after, the achievement of powered flight. And in the audience at that show was a 16-year-old Ed Music.
Wow.
And he saw those people, defying gravity, achieving the dream of flight, and it became his dream as well. He and his friends were determined that they would get to fly as well. And in those days, it was a very expensive prospect to get one of these flying machines. And so what they decided, the only way they figured that they would get to do it themselves was if they built their own airplane. So in 1912, as a couple of, a bunch of 18-year-olds got together and decided to build themselves an airplane. And they built it and wrecked it immediately and built another one and wrecked that one. And kept trying until they had earned their wings. And that is astonishing to me. I mean, what would be the equivalent today? Like building your own rocket, like building your own spaceship in your backyard. I don't even know. Like and I'm in awe of that, and I love that idea, and that and connecting with that, and what are the 18-year-olds of today? What are they contemplating? What has captured them, and what are they going to do, to realize their dreams?
Right, especially given the computing power that they have probably in their pocket and a 3D printer in their basement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Russ, I've got a great segue then, because we're talking about inspiring people off of things. There's a question about, if someone's listening to this and the search and what you guys did to go about finding this, and this is something that they were discovering they had a passion for and wanted to go and maybe try to research wreckage or whatever it could possibly be. How would you maybe recommend someone going about trying to begin that process, maybe going through archival research and photos? Where should they start? Is there a place that they should go to, or a website, or something to get them going?
I'm actually going to turn this over to Lonnie Shore, because she's the one who was tasked to do exactly that, and she went and chased it through a number of different sources. So I'm gonna let her talk now.
Well, first of all, it's wonderful to have a passion and decide to go after something, and then you have to have the mindset that you're a detective working on a cold case, and how are you going to go about it? And I think that's your question. So I am fortunate to live in close proximity to National Archives 1 and 2. 1 is in downtown DC, and it's everything prior to World War II, and Archives 2 is out in College Park, Maryland. So you go out and you kind of hone in on your topic, and so you decide which directories you need to look in, and you find directory numbers, and you fill out forms, and you get docents to sign off on your forms, and then you submit the forms for pulls. There's a certain number of pulls of documents in the archives every day, and there aren't that many pulls, so you have a lot of hanging around waiting time. Then you get a huge cart of documents that you start to pour through. There are very specific rules in the archives. You can't even bring your own pencil. So there's certain ways to handle the documents, and you go through a tutorial on a computer and fill out forms before you get a researcher card to do this. But anybody can do this. So you don't have to be an official researcher or I found a lot of people sitting around me were lawyers' assistants, looking for asbestos evidence. You can look up any topic that you have a passion for, get your researcher card, go after the documents, and just have the patience to go through miles of paper with probably not finding anything until you come across that one piece of paper that is the piece of a puzzle that will help you solve the mystery. So when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, if you're missing a piece or two, you still get the whole picture. So it's the same when you're researching. You go in and you just piece together as many documents and sources and organizations that might have something to do with the topic, and just start filling in pieces of the puzzle. And pretty soon you see the whole picture, and it's extremely exciting. It starts out and you're thinking, this is the most boring job in the world. I don't think I can keep doing this. And then when you start getting on the trail, it becomes extremely exciting until you come to the chance to actually go out and be part of the project. So this is a particular thrill for me because I'm usually at the beginning end, the detective going after the documents, but I don't get to see the end result. So this is fantastic. Keep on with any passion and just go after it.
Yeah, and I would say, the web is an amazing tool, and you can look up, almost any topic and get a general knowledge of something. But to get really in depth, it still takes going and finding those primary sources. And when we started this project, I remember Lonnie chased. What I really wanted to find was the original Bureau of Air Commerce accident report, and Lonnie chased that through, I think, 4 different archives, and finally found it in the files of the Smithsonian, and of course now it's actually on Wikipedia. So, but there's so much more out there that we were able to find for this project, and where, so you start, so we'll just use Samoan Clipper as an example. So, one of the things it was an accident, and it was an American transport plane, and it went down in American territory. So it made logical sense that what was then the Bureau of Air Commerce would have investigated, but then there was also so from that we know that there was a Navy ship that was on the scene. So can we find the deck logs for that ship, and what did they record? And then, was there any, this was, a Pan American Airways plane. Is there anything, of Pan American that there's a record of? And in that case, well, you find out, the airline went out of business, unfortunately, in 1991. But some some individuals with a great deal of foresight did not want to see those records of that pioneering company lost, and found them a home at the University of Miami libraries. So they have a wealth of information, and incredible researchers who will assist you, and who assisted us, and got us. I was floored by the material that we got from them. The original radiograms back and forth, and you can see the story as it develops, and how people are coming to grips and coming to understand what's happened. From the original report of they've lost radio communication, and then sightings over Apia or Apia, and they were sending search parties overland because they thought that the plane had landed in Western Samoa, and then getting the confirmation that no, they've found the wreckage, found the floating wreckage, and it has very definitely been lost. And it's heartbreaking to read it, but you really feel it. You really feel it in the moment in seeing those things, and then so the plane was built by Sikorsky Aircraft, and you know it takes a little digging. You find out that they have their own archive, historical, the Igor I. Sikorsky Historical Archive, and they have you know amazing amount of material saved there. Construction photos of you know, S-42 type airplanes and you know drawings and diagrams of the fuel system and just you know and they were amazing. They've been amazing as well. You know, especially the senior archivist there, Dan Libertino. Kept finding stuff. It was like Christmas, you know, every so often you get a surprise Christmas when I'd get an email from him. But yeah, the stuff it is out there still, you know, and it's an opportunity to go back and to reconnect and to see that story as the people in those times lived it and how they learned, you know, what had happened, and there's tidbits in there that you know if some other researcher didn't think to put it in their summary for Wikipedia, you're going to miss it. You're not going to know, and so there's things like again the original radiogram in the University of Miami archive that talks about the morning of the search, the morning after Simone Clipper went down. And they sent up the search plane again. And there's a report when the pilot lands, and he reports back that the oil slick as sighted yesterday appears to be coming from the ocean floor. And that, to me, is hugely significant for us, in that it means that you know he had seen that oil slick twice over the course of less than a day. And especially that the second time he saw it, that if he's saying that he thinks it's coming from the ocean floor, that it must mean logically it's still in the same place. That if it had just been a smear of oil deposited at the surface when the airplane impacted, you would expect that it would have drifted and dissipated overnight. But here he is reporting and saying that it's still present and still coming from presumably the tanks of the sunken Samoan Clipper. So that gives us a great deal of confidence about the type of information that we have, and that the wreck could really still be right in this vicinity. And that's something that you gather from the primary source material. And just one other anecdote I have to tell is that another project that we asked Lonnie to look into a while back was the Battle of the Coral Sea, and she found the logs of all the ships that had participated, all the American ships that had participated in that battle, and in fact those logs and the coordinates in them were ultimately used to help define the protected area for the Coral Sea. But and I'll ask her to elaborate on this. But I remember Jim Delgado and I were just so enthralled by the story of that when she went to the archives and they brought her, I believe it was the Lexington log, and she opened the pages, and you could smell the smoke from the battle from 70 plus years earlier. So Lonnie, if you could tell us more about that.
Well, researching the Battle of the Coral Sea is a fascinating topic because the Aussies felt that the Japanese were coming to occupy Australia, and our fleet combined with the Aussie fleet in the Battle of the Coral Sea. And I pulled all the deck logs of all the ships involved to reconstruct the battle, to try to figure out what happened to the Lexington and where she was resting. And of course the ship was bombed, torpedoed. Finally the captain called for all hands to go overboard. Most of the injuries were rope burns because they went over the side so fast. And then we torpedoed the ship ourselves so that the Japanese wouldn't get a hold of our technology. So on that last day when the ship was burning, it was listing. The men were going overboard. The deck officer still kept the log and ripped it out and put it in his pocket. So it was a partial piece of paper. And having started at the beginning of the battle and knowing all the ships and then getting to this point where there's total chaos aboard and things on fire, I was sitting in my chair at the archives and practically in tears because I was such a part of the battle by then that I could sort of smell the smoke. One of the most exciting things was one of the most famous pilots' name was Dixon, and a note was dropped on the deck. And he wrote, "Scratch one flat top." He had just, from his plane, sunk a Japanese aircraft carrier. And this was actually the first battle in U.S. naval history between aircraft carriers that never saw each other because the planes were engaged. But holding that piece of paper from Dixon, "Scratch one laptop," I thought, how am I even allowed to, flat top, how am I even allowed to hold this piece of paper? So that was amazing to be immersed in the battle in the archives. So also, I just wanted to add to the former question of resources for solving a mystery. There are huge film libraries that you can get into. They're not too well organized, but they're by topic. And Universal Films didn't sync their soundtracks at the time, but so it's like a silent movie, but you can get a lot of information from that. And also there are photographic files and there are newspaper files. So there are many different ways to approach research, and you actually have to dig into every kind of resource to put the picture together, but it's fun.
We have a question about the depth, and if we find the wreckage, whether Hercules would be able to go down there. And the depth right about here is about 3,075 meters, and Hercules is actually rated to go to 4,000 meter depth. So if the wreckage is in this area, we should be perfectly fine. Argus is rated to go 6,000 meters, which is our eye on the sky for Hercules, to help Hercules kind of navigate where it's going, make sure that we avoid any hazards and obstacles, and have the smoothest exploration possible. So we should be perfectly fine. If you're just joining us, we are on our dive right off of the coast of American Samoa. For the next 24 hours or so, we're going to be kind of making patterns just back and forth across a 2 square mile search area. We're traveling about 1.5 knots, and we have Argus down in the water, and we're going to be using it as a tow fish to create a side scan sonar map of the area to identify some dive targets for our search of the Samoan Clipper. And we have just kind of started this process. If you're watching at home, you can probably see the feed. We'll hopefully be able to show you that same side scan sonar as we begin to do that live. We'll be aiming to do that. But the Samoan Clipper, for those of you who have joined, crashed in January 11th, 1938. It made an emergency landing after taking off from Pongo Pongo. And unfortunately, the captain and music and his 6 crew members did perish after making an emergency landing, and the aircraft suffered an explosion. So we're looking for some larger components, potentially the engines, possibly the tail of the plane. Specifically, based on eyewitness accounts, we're looking for the wings, which, based on the eyewitness account, survived the explosion. Was at the surface of the water for about 5 minutes before sinking. And the Air Sea Heritage Foundation is leading this expedition, and we hope to hopefully be able to shed light on the Samoan Clipper for the first time since 1938.
Actually, I have a question of our pilots. What depth are we at now?
Not sure if our pilots are on SPL,
Oh,
but
okay.
Argus
2,700 meters.
payout is 2,712.
Fantastic.
Sorry
We're
about
getting
that.
close.
No
Yes.
worries. Oh.
400-ish.
It's interesting hearing you talk about going back through those archives, and specifically in the Coral Sea, or for this mission, or even things in modern history, trying to resolve unmatching accounts of what happened to try and piece it together after the fact is quite a challenge. And there's a modern author who was a reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer who wrote a multi-part series about the battle in Mogadishu in Somalia that by U.S. forces in the 90s, I think it was. And he ended up publishing a book called Black Hawk Down. His name's Mark Bowden. And he does a really good job of handling, you know, so-and-so said it was this, but no one else's account aligned with that. So clearly he must have seen this and interpreted it as that. And that's part of the, you can't just find a document and think you have the truth, because another document is going to tell you you don't. And then you have to figure out, how do we get all that to align, and what likely happened? Yeah.
Yeah, there's an instance in that, like the the eyewitness, in her description says that when the plane passed overhead, it was trailing smoke, and then she said she could smell gasoline. And what the investigators at the time concluded was that actually it was probably the vapor of the fuel, the draining fuel, that was trailing behind the airplane at that time, and then which is bolstered by the fact that she could actually smell the fuel after the plane had passed overhead. And in fact, that was their last radio transmission, was that they were preparing to dump fuel. And then, at some point during that process, yes, the fuel vapors were ignited and started a fire, and presumably, the explosion that destroyed the airplane and took the lives of the crew. But yeah, there's not as many perspectives on this story. We don't have as many, unfortunately, as many witnesses to draw from. But even then, they were having to interpret based on her, her experience of what would her experience of airplanes be, and what was likely happening at that moment. So.
You're also at the mercy of the historians and the writers, because writers have the ability to change an account according to their own perspective. So it's very hard to piece it together later and sort out who wrote it and what was their motive and what's the final resolution.
So the Samoan Clipper, in addition to its crew and captain, was carrying 751 pounds of express cargo. Russ, was that just exclusively, because this was a mail route they were needing to establish, was that just mail, or were they transferring potentially goods? Or
Well, it was mostly mail, letters and first day covers and things like that. But I did find a few accounts mainly in New Zealand papers that actually prior to the accident, where they're talking about they're excitedly anticipating the items that are coming via airmail, finally. So there was a new typewriter on board and a new type of radio, and then kind of interestingly, the newsreel footage of the sinking of the gunboat USS Panay that had happened in China the month before. And they were going to get the 3 reels newsreel, to show in the theaters in Auckland when it was lost. So, there's an author that has worked with us from the beginning, John Krupnick, who published a exhaustive and fascinating history of the Pan Am Pacific Division. It's called Pacific Pioneers. And he is a true expert on, and I hope I say this right, philaety, the stamps and mail, and has made a real study of it. And
That's the wrap.
They would do these, they would do special covers on things like this, like inaugural flights, and some of them would be even be autographed by Captain Music. I actually I got one of them on eBay myself, actually, from an earlier flight, from the flight up from Auckland. And of course, nothing survives from the mail that was being sent down. Though that's another thing that might be we'll be on the lookout for, is that
Right.
there's accounts. Megan, actually, you know something about that.
Well, no, something
Oh,
about
was it the Garrett? Oh, I can't remember the name of the ship or pronounce it, but
the Garasopa?
yes.
Yeah, so there was a ship recently, I don't know if it was recently discovered in the UK, but it was recently excavated in the UK, and they had found a bag of mail on it, and actually when conserved, these letters were able to be read, and I think that they were recently on display at a museum, but there's a potential that we could find the same thing and quite possibly be able to be in the same situation.
Incredible.
So paper will survive in an area if it's protected. And on a steel ship, of course, that would be inside the ship. Of course, a bag of paper mail will not survive if it's just out on the ocean floor. But if protected inside the tail of the wreck, then yeah, there's a high chance that it'll still survive.
Incredible.
We have our first bottom return. It's around 200 meters.
Terrain. Pull up. You can run it down to 50 and then stop if you want. I think we should, if you switch over while we're static, stop and get comfortable, and then you can verify you have altitude there.
So for the dudes at home, we are...
What do you want on that screen?
Getting close to being able to
I think you could ask Ed
see the bottom.
if you want it.
The side scan or the meso?
Side scan
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you got it cropped.
Yeah. We haven't been able to crop yet. I'm going to have to grab some more
Right.
computers and work on that. We don't, and the side scan computer is being used for bottom detection
Roger.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah, you could do it, or you could pull up the sonar there and then have the side
That's
scan
all right.
up there.
I was just bored. We're almost there.
Yeah, put PC2 on your right monitor, or I can do it.
Nice.
Like that?
Do we have a sound effect to go with that?
Oh, that was a nice final.
Don't have to crane my neck up anymore.
I have a feeling we're going to be watching that one.
Yeah. I have that feeling too.
It is forward, right?
Should be. It's our Argus heading north. Roger.
So in theory, we should start seeing something on the Mesotech 1000 in
We'll
another 20, 30 meters.
Yeah, and I think it should upslope, so it should be coming from the southwest quadrant.
You know what's really cool?
What's that?
Is it's actually round there.
It's what?
It's round there, the correct aspect ratio.
I know, yeah.
The not correct
Well,
aspect
I've
ratio.
been looking at this for so long. I just thought that this was a circle, and then so Miles and I were sitting here, and we just turned our head sideways, and I was like, that's not a circle at all.
I'm surprised that
Something about the
doesn't,
angle of the monitor too. It makes you think that it's like, oh, that's a circle, and then you turn your head sideways, and you're like, that's an ellipse.
All right, we're like 100 meters up.
Yep, it's 100 meters off.
100 meters. Roger. Surprised that doesn't drive Ed crazy. I'm the only one that my OCD doesn't quite allow that.
It's not allowed.
I look at it like, oh, that's not right.
Yeah.
Well, now it's going to drive all of us crazy for the next 6 weeks. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
How long you on for, Summer?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
I mean, August 26th.
Yeah.
You do that math.
A
I
period of
refuse.
time.
All right, here we go. Let's do it.
In theory, that's 75 meters off the seabed.
Yeah.
We don't have a digital readout yet. We're still analog squiggly line over here.
Squiggles eye.
So we are closely approaching our depth, and we'll be able to start our pattern of going back and forth over that 2 square mile search area.
It's a big lawn to mount.
Expensive and big lawn.
So that should be close to 50 meters off the deck
Yeah.
there, yeah.
I'll come to all stop.
Roger. So we're going to come all stop here, guys, and we're going to, and
Copy.
girls, we're going to disable the sub-bottom profiler, and we're going to enable the
So
Argus altimeter.
altitude's not coming in yet.
And in theory, we should have rock solid Argus altitude.
And it's 52.
In theory. Come down a little, see
Okay,
what happens.
coming down.
Oh, I saw something there.
Said 87, but I saw 52 before, so.
Roger.
Does it take a bit to spin up or what?
And Trevor said it'd come in around 80, and I don't.
All right, let's switch back and,
Roger.
or at least turn the sub-bottom profiler back on.
Yeah, you can do both
Yeah.
without the edge
Yeah, we
check,
can.
right?
Yeah.
Alright, so it looks like we're about 50 now.
45.65 according to the sub-bottom profiler. Come
Change
down
the
another
scope.
15 meters, see what
Yeah,
happens.
coming down.
If you note your depth on your wire there.
Wire out is 3044.
Roger. It's within 5 meters of the
Yeah.
Digicords.
Camera's tilted down. Yep.
Camera's tilted all the way down.
I think it's pretty flat around here, isn't it?
About to find out.
Well, we are.
Alright, 20. Yeah, this is 38 altimeter. I don't trust that though.
Another 5 meters, see what happens.
Yeah, still coming down.
We should have stuck the DVL on Argus.
just to get out.
Got super tracking
We should have.
Alright.
next time.
I can only imagine the amount of rewiring that would all take.
Oh, it's just plug and play.
Does Argus bottle have the capability?
Maybe.
Should do.
Well, maybe that is
232.
accurate.
We're a bit off from our, yeah.
20 meters to go if that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come down below 30 and then stop and switch over. So we're going to run 20 to 30 for the line, right? So
What do you mean?
20 to 30 meter altitude.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We can also change the range on that sub bottom if it makes you.
We're getting it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, 23.
Okay, if you want to come, I'll stop there
I'll
at 20.
stop.
20 meters altitude, where I'll stop. So we're going to disable the edge, or the sub-bottom profiler.
Hey, Dan.
And
I
we're
know what I'm
hoping.
heading.
Yes, sir.
So,
Heading 335.
if the bottom drops away as we're towing, even if it goes down 3 or 4 meters, aren't we going to lose our altitude then?
In theory, our Argus altimeter is good to at least 50. It should be 80.
Huh, okay. All right, copy.
I'm gonna go ahead and say we're on bottom now.
Yeah, roger.
Data logger.
And I'll turn to the heading of 335.
Got it.
So 3073,
3073, huh?
our depth.
Yeah.
All right, heading's good. You ready to come down?
No, that's as shallow as you go. 20 meters off the bottom.
Oh, we're gonna stay here. Oh yeah, that's right.
You can come up a bit if you want, actually, and see if we still get altitude. So if not, if that's erratic, we'll have to share the screen. Is that the issue there?
I think so. We'll just have the edge tech up front, and then we'll just have them leave a bit of a gap here, and we can just take a look at this much.
Roger.
So 20.
Or unless they can pull the, unless they're getting a data stream for altitude somewhere else, and they can.
Oh yeah,
pop that up
they
on
may
the edge
have.
tech.
Yeah, they may. The edge tech may have altitude readout on it.
Yeah, copy.
So. All right. So are we ready to hand over the engineering computer back there?
Let's switch that to what we usually run at first. So if you switch that to where you usually run at 50 meters, I think, 30 meters, something like that.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not on, but it'll be.
Yeah, just in case we have to.
Yeah, I have to switch over.
Like, oh, where's happening?
All right, so in the back row, we're ready for you guys to take control of the edge tech. Do we have that someone there who wants to be operating it? Or is that? Oh, I have control. How do I have control? Do you have control too?
Of the edge tech?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. I didn't know we could both have it. Well, there it is.
Okay.
Go. Let me see if I can just do it. Yeah. Stop. Stop messing with it.
Alrighty then.
Let me just see what that would look like, just so we know. Yeah, it would look like that. Or we'd get a little bit of a readout here.
I like that. I mean, I'm comfortable with that.
But does the sub-bottom interfere with the edge tech? Did we figure that out?
I don't know. We have altitude.
Yeah,
at the
we have
moment,
the
so
altimeter.
you're
It's
okay.
fine.
Good, yeah.
Just, we can
Let's
not
see, is
worry
there an
about
altitude readout on this screen as well? They just had one.
Oh, cool. We get pitch on that too. Well, that's not accurate.
Altitude NA.
Our heading says 100.
Should
Oh,
say
'cause it's-
altitude pull up.
NA111.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so that's not
So
not
it's
helping us.
just not set up with a NMEA string, yeah?
Yeah, it probably isn't.
Some data wizardry in the background, probably.
All right, so Mike, you got control back there?
Yep, I got it. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
We can probably do full screen. I just have a little bit of sub-bottom showing there.
You don't have to have that
But we
there.
don't need that right
yeah,
now.
you know that you can see the altitude from the side scan.
Sorry?
You can see our altitude from the side scan.
Yeah, where is that?
Right here. So we're at 25 right now.
Oh, okay.
So
It has that. Yeah. I didn't know if I couldn't. I pulled up the altitude panel, but it just said NA.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Justin's working on that.
Okay.
How do you, what is he on?
He's Psi 2.
Site 2.
Yeah, listen to him. Yep.
Oh, I'm just talking to SPL.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the data looks a little wonky, but once we start actually moving,
You can hone it in.
I think.
Okay. Well, we're all ready to go here.
Yeah, let's start moving towards the line.
Okay.
All right.
Bridge, nav.
So did you,
We can track along the selected line, azimuth 335. We can maintain ship's heading if necessary as its current 83 degrees. We'd like to go a speed of 1 knot.
So I'm going to work on making some adjustments to the video system so that we can stream the side scan as we do it, but that's going to take me
Roger that.
a little bit here to get that set up.
Sounds great. So if you've just joined us, we are with our team off of the coast of American Samoa, beginning our search for the Samoan Clipper. And Argus, our ROV, is now at depth, and we are preparing to begin our cross sections back and forth to begin to side scan map the roughly 2 square mile area, or search area, where we might believe the Samoan Clipper might be. We're going to be doing that for about the next 24 hours and begin to identify some dive sites. And when we begin to do those and find those, then we will bring Argus and attach Hercules and do the more typical dives that you would think of. We're just over 3,000 meters below the surface of the ocean, and we're hovering about 20 meters or so above the ocean floor. And we're doing that and keeping Argus as relatively as far down as we can there, so we can get as detailed as a image as possible. The further up we go, the less detailed of an image we get as we look for the specific targets and possible wreckage of the Samoan Clipper, which crashed in January 11th, 1938. You'll start to see the sonar feed a little bit later as we prepare it. But we're going to travel about 1.5 knots, so we're not going to be going particularly quickly as we go through this to make sure we get some great images. The Argus will be towed behind us, and Argus was fitted with a static fin that will keep Argus moving in a pretty consistent direction as we travel through the water. The reason why we use the ROVs is manned submersibles are both an expensive endeavor as well, and whenever you put a human below the surface of the ocean, especially at such great depths, you're always running a risk. So ROVs are a much safer way of us exploring the ocean. Plus, the ROVs don't need to breathe. They don't need to come up regularly, so we can continue with our 4-hour watches and shifts, and we can continue to dive for as long as we need to and make the best use of the time we have here on site.
You can change heading to whatever you're comfortable with. Thank you.
And just to jump in there, so ROV stands for remote operated or remotely operated vehicle. So we have a tether connecting to our underwater robots and we're able to control them from up top on the boat. So currently inside of the control van, we have control over Argus's cameras, Argus's tether length, and basically what depth Argus is at.
So we have a question from Heather, and Heather was asking about why we are choosing to scan instead of just going down with video on Herc, and the simple answer for that is we can cover a much wider area. We don't want to, we only have limited time while we're out here, so making sure that we scan the areas that are of greatest interest to us and have the most interesting prospects when it comes to potentially having found the wreckage is kind of advantageous to us. That way, ideally, you can find the wreckage faster and then spend more time exploring the wreckage, taking samples, recording, and adding that new chapter, our final chapter, to the Samoan Clipper.
And I think just to qualify that a little bit, one of the main differences between this survey and possibly some others that people have seen is that we don't yet actually know where this is. And so we're doing the search part of our survey using using a sonar so that we can actually find it, and then we'll go and look at it with the ROV camera on the Hercules.
All right, so the ship has begun its movement. I expect that Argus won't feel it for a bit.
Okay.
The Argus may be trailing a bit offline because the ship will, but we'll compensate for that on the next line. It'll be also a bit offset in the same direction, so.
Okay.
Depends on where. It would be hard to figure out where it wants to settle. Summer I expect to be going down slope, so you'll be paying out to keep altitude as we go.
Copy that.
And you're at a heading of 335?
335.
Roger.
Doctor, I could be wrong, but I think you might know Heather.
I do. Heather has been with the Nautilus on many expeditions from shore, and she's also my sister.
Both great qualities.
That's great.
I was last on the Nautilus in 2015 when we were looking at the USS Macon site because I'm an aviation archaeologist, and Heather was with us every step of the way on that one as well.
Nice.
Aww.
Yeah.
So we are searching a area about 2 square miles.
Starting to move.
And we'll have about 300 meters or so in between each one of our survey lines as we go back and forth.
Herc and Argus, can we try turning off if they're on the aft thruster and the port LED?
Port LED is currently off.
Okay.
And you want to disable the aft thruster?
Correct.
Yeah, we were trying that on shakedown.
Yep.
Is
to
that
disable
better?
the thrusters.
All right, so it's
Hopefully the fin, once we get a bit of speed, the fin will control
okay.
a bit.
Thruster
because
secure.
there's noise in the side scan.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tinker. I think once we get speed up, it'll settle out, but right now it's a little
All right.
unhappy.
Both of your requests have been fulfilled.
All right, thanks.
You could see there, right there.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
our headings stay.
Sorry, you want to disable one thruster or kick them both offline?
The port thruster seemed to be the one that made a difference.
The aft.
Sorry, aft thruster, yeah.
All right. We don't get a USBL speed over ground for Argus, do we?
Negative.
But it's moving along with the ship now, is it?
Yeah. You can see it's bouncing
It's
around,
just
but
starting, I think.
it'll start to go. Current speed is 0.4 knots. Let's see what happens if we can get up.
So if you want, you can kick that auto head off and see if it tracks.
Roger. Auto head coming off.
So that should, in effect, disable both thrusters because they're not doing anything now, right?
Right. So both thrusters disabled.
See what our heading, if we keep our heading at this speed
25.
with the fin.
The stickerless fin.
Oh, it still needs to be tagged.
So empty and alone looking.
For now.
So it's walking around a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be, the current might be stronger than the,
We are.
Yeah, let's watch it for a minute, see what it does. We're not quite on the line yet, are we? We got
nope.
some
Yeah,
time
we got
to
some
play
time
with
to
it.
play. Yep.
It's continuing to walk around. It's probably going to swap ends on you.
Can you guys record that we started recording the
Do you want me to re-enable the thruster?
No, let's watch it for a minute, see what happens. So, at some point, the fin has to kick in, right? It's sideways.
Yeah.
Mike, do you copy what we're talking about up here?
Yeah.
We've disabled both thrusters.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
looking
watching.
a lot better.
Yeah, however, the heading is now at approaching 270, which is not what we want.
Oh, I see. So keeping the thruster on keeps us going in the right direction.
Well, we're just going to watch it for a minute and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah this
if it
line
keeps,
is to experiment.
Yeah.
If it keeps walking around, what I imagine will happen is then the fin will start, the rudder will start ruddering, and it might oscillate in a big, huge, slow, go one way then the other for the...
Yeah, it might be our slow speed right now of 4.4 knots. That's not really helping. So
while we get this set up, I'm going to jump down and try and make some adjustments so we can stream this out on stream 2.
Jump away.
I'll be off comms for a bit, but on radio.
Got it. And is our altitude, how critical is our altitude? Does it have to be bang on 20, or can it be 20 to 25 or 25 to 30?
They're having science huddles back there.
Oh, they're not listening.
Sorry, what's going on?
Just wondering how critical the altitude is. Does it, plus or minus a meter, or plus or minus 5 meters? Or
I would like to see, I would like to keep it between 10 and 20 meters altitude.
You mean above the seafloor, or like slack on either side?
Above the seafloor.
Okay.
20 meters above the seafloor.
But then, like,
10.
If I'm at 23, like, do you want me to keep it solid at 20 as much as I can?
I'd like to keep it between 10 and 15 if possible.
10 off the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, so you want me to go down more?
Yes, please.
Roger. Going down.
Yeah, I need to try to dial in that with the range. It looks like right now we might end up more like 20 to get the range we want, but I'm trying to...
All right. Okay. I'm going to head down.
Drop it down, see what happens.
And our heading's coming around again, so that's cool.
It is.
It was past 270.
So if you come down nice and easy. So far the Mesotech has not been real helpful.
We're still smearing a bit there, Mike, to the...
All right, I'm at 11.
Our heading is approaching what we want it to be. But still, it's around 300 now.
See if this is a target.
Would you like me to mark that then?
Yeah, so it's 125 meters
you can see
to
bottom.
starboard.
125 meters to starboard. Aye.
We got bottom in sight, so that's cool.
So,
And then,
Randy, can you look at these? Can you look at these coordinates and see what you think of those?
Well, those are in degrees, decimal minutes, and I have degrees, decimal degrees.
Okay.
So I can do the conversion if you want. But
yeah, just to see if they're similar to what you have, or if because we should be getting from Argus, so it should be the same.
I think you're good.
Let me just take a look there at that target. Hold on, let me do some math and I'll get it. So I have
if you want, you can tilt up
1.33.
Try it and see how it looks.
Divided by 60. Okay, so for your longitude, the target that I've just dropped,
kick that other
which
light
was,
back on if
as
you want
said,
to.
125 off.
Yep.
Okay.
Is negative 170.8.
Just for the noise, I think.
5355, and the one that you dropped was 8555. So that's in the neighborhood.
Okay. But we'll still take it from high pack.
Okay. Did you pipe that in with Justin? You worked that out?
With Justin?
Oh, the navigation?
Yeah, it should be
slowly
getting it from
oscillating.
Marcus.
So